Thank you for joining me for the weekly Wednesday Twitch stream. Good to see you all here. I have not yet put out the tweet letting everyone know that I already got a voice problem. I have not yet put out the tweet letting everybody know that I'm starting, so give me just a moment to get that out there on the very fine website, twitter.com. For those of you who participate in Weird Twitter, it's been quite the week. There was an interview with Papa John's. If you're not from the United States, you may not be that familiar with Papa John, but Papa John's is a pizza chain. They do fast and relatively inexpensive pizza delivery. I am live on Twitch. Join. Okay. Sorry about being late with this. As always, I tend to be a little bit behind with stuff. My lack of tech savvy typically contributing to that. But yeah, so on Papa John. So Papa John's is a pizza chain. It was founded by a guy named John. You know, that's why he calls it Papa John. And so he did an interview where he to give a little bit of background, he had been kind of booted out of his own pizza chain for making some questionable comments. And so I guess he's been trying to get back in. And so he gave a interview to the local news station in Louisville, Kentucky, where where the pizza chain is located, and he talked about the fact that he's eaten over 40 pizzas in the last 30 days, and the pizza quality is not the same as when he was running the company. I just like the idea, as many people did on Twitter, of someone eating over 40 pizzas in the last 30 days. Anyway, if you do Google search Papajohn. That's the name of the pizza company. Okay, enough nonsense about all of the fun we get from Weird Twitter. Let's talk about Wi-Fi Twitter here, or not Wi-Fi Twitter, but just Wi-Fi. And let's get going. Today's topic is Wi-Fi scanners. You know I said during last week's Twitch stream that I was going to kind of focus on the use of some of the Adrian Granados tools, and I'm a humongous fan of these tools. The website for Adrian Granados is just adriangranados.com. Whoops, I'm misspelling things here. And so if you go to that website, he has a number of tools. One of the tools that is completely free that I absolutely love is AirTool. It is a Mac OS tool. But AirTool is something that allows you to choose which channel your Mac is capturing on. If you want your Mac to kind of act as a capture device, as a device to help you out with some protocol analysis, you can use that AirTool, and it's completely free. I think I showed it a little bit earlier on. Let me see if I can show it here on my screen. I think it will come up. It's a tool that runs at the top menu bar. It may not actually. Oh yeah, there it is. See that up there? That's AirTool. So I just started up AirTool, and that's what it does. And what AirTool allows me to do is choose the channel I want to capture on, choose the channel width I want to capture with, so that I can just use my Mac as an analysis device and kind of capture. An AirTool, and a free tool to look at what you've captured is Wireshark. And that's not an Adrian Granados tool. Free protocol analyzer is Wireshark. There's also some commercial protocol analyzers that I really, really like. Commercial analyzers, at least that I like, would be Air Magnet Wi-Fi analyzer. or what the heck is the name of the company now? The tool is called OmniPeak, but I'm completely blanking on the name of the company. They used to be called Savius, but they used to be called Wild Packets. I know they now have a new name, or they were bought out by someone. If anyone watching remembers, feel free to help me out in the chat room and let me know. But the point is, those are commercial analyzers for looking at packets. Definitely the most popular Granados tool, though, is a commercial tool. It's a Wi-Fi scanner from this is a Wi-Fi scanner that is from Adrian Granados, and it's called Wi-Fi Explorer. There's a relatively low cost option, but the Wi-Fi Pro version is that's kind of the one that is $100 or $99, whatever it is, and that's the one that I really use a lot. Thank you, Amit, much appreciated. Live Action is the name of the company that does OmniPeak. Live Action OmniPeak, much appreciated there. Yeah, had a little brain freeze going on. So yeah, so again, that was what I kind of mentioned on last week's stream. Was I'm going to go through these Adrian Granados tools and talk about how I use them, and I will do that at some point in the future. But what I realized throughout the course of the week, chatting with a few folks I know, and just also thinking back to some of the experiences I've had in Wi-Fi, I was thinking, like, I don't even know if people really, put a lot of value in Wi-Fi scanners. And I'm a big user of Wi-Fi scanners. I find them to be tremendously valuable. And so what I decided was I'll definitely talk about Adrian's tool. I have it set up here to kind of share with you all. This is what Wi-Fi Explorer looks like. This is the Pro version. This is the $100 version. If you are a student or if you work in education, you can get Wi-Fi Explorer for half price, for $50 rather than $100 US. I just figured it would be good before I go in and kind of take you all through how I use Adrian's tools. Maybe I'll talk about the value of, or at least what I see is the value of Wi-Fi Wi-Fi scanners before I do that. So that's what this week's going to be about. This week's going to be about Wi-Fi scanners. Let's get my old PowerPoint presentation going here. Take me just a moment to get that bad boy running. And so I'll take you through a little bit of why I'm such a big fan of Wi-Fi scanners, and talk about what Wi-Fi scanners can do and kind of how I use them. And then in a future stream, maybe next week, I might give it a week or two to breathe. But in a relatively near future stream, then I'll kind of go more specifically into Adrian's tool set, because again, I am such a big fan of what he does. So yeah, let's get into it. Here's my little presentation for the week. Today is the 27th of November. For those of us that are here in the United States, we've got a late Thanksgiving this year. I think this is just about as late as it gets. I don't know, maybe it can get a little bit later, but Thanksgiving's all the way on the 28th. I think that is the latest it can get. I think Thanksgiving is the 3rd, or is it the 4th? Maybe it's the 4th Thursday in November. So I guess it can range anywhere from the 22nd to the 28th. So we're getting the latest possible Thanksgiving this year here in the United States. For those of you that may not be from the United States, Thanksgiving is a beloved holiday in many circles because, it's sort of the rare holiday that we have here that's not religious and not patriotic. And I realize a lot of folks are religious and a lot of folks are patriotic, so they really enjoy the religious or the patriotic holidays, or both of them. I enjoy those holidays as well, but it's not a holiday that's like tied to the military or to winning a war or something like, or to the commander in chief. And it's not a holiday that's like, the birth of Christ or the resurrection or something like that. So people really like Thanksgiving. Tends to be a big family holiday. I'm originally from the state of Wisconsin here in the United States, which is kind of in the northern central part of the country. Very cold up there. Climate probably analogous to, let's say, Sweden or Finland or someplace like that. Maybe more so like Russia. But yeah, in any case, I guess Russia has a number of different climates, but a snowy, cold part of Russia. But that's where all my family is. But I live in Los Angeles. That's where I'm celebrating Thanksgiving with the lady and with her family. So should be a good time. My brother actually in Wisconsin just had his first child today, so I'm an uncle yet again. Very excited. I'm sure the baby, who's about 2 hours old, is not watching, but shout out to little Joshua Douglas Miller. If for some reason my brother has this stream up and the baby is watching. So let's get to it though. So today's topic is Wi-Fi scanners. Just the quick info here. If you want to follow me, get in touch with me, etc. I use the Ben Miller handle on Twitter. Obviously, you're here, so you know that I use Ben_Sniff Wi-Fi on Twitch. I know I said last week that I would get a blog post done, but it has not happened yet. I have a blog post in drafts. It's not fully finished yet. It's going to be on some access point configuration setting stuff. And I will get into that. And then, if you're unfamiliar with me, never talked to me or seen me before, what I do is just do contracting on Wi-Fi, teaching Wi-Fi, consulting on Wi-Fi, writing about Wi-Fi, etc. So let's talk about these little Wi-Fi scanner tools, and let's start off by getting some context. We have a number of different Wi-Fi tools that people may use, and I want to kind of give some context to what it is precisely that the Wi-Fi scanner does compared to some of the other Wi-Fi tools that are out there. So what a Wi-Fi scanner does is it runs on a device that has a Wi-Fi radio. Oftentimes that is a client device like a smartphone or a laptop or a tablet, something of that nature. You can run scanner style software on access points as well. Access points have Wi-Fi radios too. But I don't know that I would say it's particularly common to see a full-blown Wi-Fi scanner run on an access point. It tends to be more so a client device, something run on a client device that gives you access point information. So you're kind of looking for information on nearby access points in the area, how those access points are behaving, etc. That's kind of what the Wi-Fi scanner does. And what I use it for is I'll use Wi-Fi scanners during sort of the surveying and design phase. I'll use Wi-Fi scanners if I'm doing any type of kind of proactive validation. So what I mean by proactive validation is if I have an environment where we're not in the design phase, the network's already been deployed, there are people on the network, and I have a location where there haven't been any problems reported, so I'm not doing any type of troubleshooting, but I'm trying to be proactive about something. Maybe there'll be an event that's coming up in a certain location, and I want to make sure the Wi-Fi works well for the event. Maybe there'll be an expansion. Maybe I'm just a little bit suspicious. Maybe I see there's a location where, based on the number of clients that we see, the amount of data isn't as high as I would think it should be. Maybe it's an environment where I'm concerned that the people who are in that environment are unhappy with the Wi-Fi, but not telling us, not telling the people who manage the Wi-Fi. Sometimes a sign of that is if you see a relatively low percentage of smartphones on the Wi-Fi. Like if you know for a fact there are 50 people in a location, but you only see 3 or 4 smartphones connected to the Wi-Fi, sometimes that's a sign that the Wi-Fi is not very good. That means that there's 45, 46 or 47 out of those 50 people who are using their cellular connection. Could just be, I've talked to some people who have told me, my cell phone has unlimited data. I just don't feel like going through the hassle of connecting to Wi-Fi, or, I always just keep the Wi-Fi on my cell phone off. Again, the whole unlimited data thing. And I don't feel like turning it on while I'm here in this location. I really only turn on the Wi-Fi if I have no cell coverage and I need Wi-Fi. Or I've also talked to people who are concerned about security, who say, well, someone might be looking at my traffic if I connect to the Wi-Fi. And I mean, my response to that is, you might be right. Maybe there are people looking at your traffic, but you don't think people are looking at your traffic over cellular connections? I mean, I don't know. You can read many a news article where authorities of some kind, have sniffed cellular data to, solve some type of crime or find something or other that they want to find. But whatever, maybe it is true. Maybe there's more eavesdropping that goes on over Wi-Fi than over cellular. Who knows? But the point is, if you see one of those situations, I know there's 50 people, there's only 3 or 4 smartphones connected to Wi-Fi. I've kind of used that as a trigger before to kind of proactively validate a site or look at a site. And then the third scenario, so, again, scenario number 1 would be design and surveying. Scenario number 2 would be this kind of proactive validation. And then scenario number 3, where I would use Wi-Fi scanners, is probably the most common scenario, which is just troubleshooting, which is just a problem's been reported. We want to solve the problem. Wi-Fi scanners are one of the tools that we can use. Before we do get into the Wi-Fi scanners, just to go through the quick list here and kind of what some of these tools are. I hate to kind of pick on one particular vendor, but I think it may illuminate things a little bit if I use specific vendor tool names. And because of the fact that, the most recent large job I was on was at USC, and at USC they're an Aruba shop. They use Aruba switches, Aruba access points, Aruba virtually everything. Because of that, I'll kind of use some Aruba terminology. One tool you can use if you're doing troubleshooting, if you're doing validation, things of that nature, it would be a controller or a management system. And in Cisco parlance, the controller would be a WLC, or wireless LAN controller. In Aruba parlance, there's the MM, or mobility master, along with the MD. I forget what the MD stands for. Mobility distributor. I forget. But the point is, the MD is kind of an appliance. It's a physical appliance that you mount somewhere and allows data to flow through it. Data flows through the MDs. The MM is software. That's kind of a management tool. That's where configurations are done and things of that nature. When I say a management system, that would be talking about something like the Aruba MM. For Cisco, that is mostly the WLC. There might be some cases where it's not that, but the key thing about these devices that I'm talking about here is this is where you configure the network. That's the big thing. You might get some degree of monitoring, but what I'm really talking about there with that first one is wherever you configure the network. And look, if you're a Mist user, it would be in your Mist, console. I forget if Mist has a name for it. If you're an Extreme Networks user, what used to be AeroHive, it would be the old Hive Manager. That just wherever it is that you're configuring the network. Separate from that would be what I like to call centralized monitoring consoles. I don't know if that's like a popular industry term. I know that an old term that used to be used like in the CWNA exam and such was WNMS, Wireless Network Management System. But the term I like for them is a centralized monitoring console. And the key thing with those is I'm talking about something where it's primarily designed for monitoring, not so much for configuring. And so in the Aruba case, this would be Airwave, or nowadays Aruba Central has kind of taken over for Airwave. In Cisco parlance, this would be Cisco Prime Infrastructure. That's kind of what I'm talking about there. And I realize with those tools, with those applications, that you may be able to do some configuration, but certainly, at least in my experience, the primary purpose of those things is for monitoring. It's I know certainly at USC, we never did a configuration from Airwave. Every configuration we did was always from the mobility master, or from with older code, it was with the master controller. We even though you have the capability to do some configuring in Airwave, we never used it as such. The other thing that I do want to mention there is there are some of these centralized monitoring consoles nowadays that kind of focus on the client experience. Definitely the one that sort of integrates the client experience with what I would call a traditional centralized monitoring console is the product from Mist. With Mist, you get a kind of a little bit more insight into what the client is doing, in addition to the traditional monitoring of the infrastructure that you would get from Airwave or from Prime Infrastructure. But then I would also add to the client experience kind of, some of these other products that are add-ons or that are third-party products that give you a look at the client experience. Definitely, in my opinion, and I'm biased because this is the product that we used at USC and I found it to be very, very useful, was the Nyansa, or Nyansa, I guess is the pronunciation, Voyance product. That's a third-party product that's not affiliated with any specific vendor. The Voyance product is one of those ones that focuses on the client experience. Aruba has their own product. We weren't using that product at USC, but I know that is a product that's out there called Aruba Insight. Cisco has a product, I think it's called DNA, if I remember it correctly. So I kind of group those products in with these centralized monitoring consoles. What they do for monitoring is maybe a little bit different. What they do for monitoring is focused on the client experience rather than the infrastructure experience. The Prime Infrastructure and the Airwave or Aruba Central, those are more focused on the infrastructure experience. The infrastructure status, I guess I should say. But I still group them together because they are centralized. They are all about monitoring your environment. They're not about configuring your environment. They're about giving you alerts or giving you information about kind of what's happening on your Wi-Fi infrastructure. And so that's why I kind of group all of those things together. All of those things are centralized. Everything I kind of put up here, that stuff is all centralized. That's all the stuff that you can kind of look at from your desk if you're a network engineer, a network admin, whatever the case may be. The rest of the stuff here, at least most of the rest of the stuff here, is all client side. And I mentioned what the Wi-Fi scanner can do, and that's kind of the main purpose of what we're going to look at here. But just to cover the other ones, there's site survey applications. Definitely Ekahau is the most recognized of those. I know there's a company called IB Wave who makes a competing product. Those are heat map creators. I view them as kind of mostly documentation tools. A heat map is a great way to document kind of what you have set up, so that you have it on file so that you can show it to management, etc. So if you want a nice heat map of your floor plans or of of your environment. The site survey applications can be a great way to get that. The spectrum analyzer is a tool that's looking for just radio frequency activity. The protocol analyzer is for capturing Wi-Fi traffic. So with the protocol analyzer, that is Wi-Fi only, whereas the spectrum analyzer is showing you everything that's on a particular channel. But the sort of the positive side of that, the positive side of it being Wi-Fi only, is it's showing you the actual traffic. You know, you can differentiate between what type of radio frequency activity was data, what was non-data, what was sent by one client, what was received by another client, what was going to the AP, what was going from the AP. And so you can get into a lot more detail with the protocol analyzer as opposed to the spectrum analyzer. But the limitation of all of these things, and it mentions there's also some performance testing tools, the iPerf type stuff that'll do a throughput test or a load test or maybe even a specific application test for you. The limitation of these things, however, is that none of these things, except for the Wi-Fi scanner, can give me an idea of what my real signal strength is to a client. None of these things besides the Wi-Fi scanner can give me a real look at CCI, co-channel interference. Co-channel interference. Those, I would say, are the two big things that Wi-Fi scanners can give you that these other products can't give you. You know, when I would use Airwave, for example, or when I would look on the or look at the command line interface for the controllers that we had at USC, I could get signal strength. You know, signal strength is shown as RSSI commonly. That stands for Received Signal Strength Indicator. I could see the RSSI for a client device, but the RSSI that I was getting from a controller or from my Airwave or whatever it was, that was RSSI coming from the client to the access point. I was not able to see signal strength coming from the access point to the client. And signal strength from the access point to the client in many ways is more important because it is the client that makes connection decisions. Connection decisions. So what I mean by connection decisions is the client decides which access point to connect to in a large auditorium where you have 4 or 5 access points deployed. The client determines when the client is going to roam between access points as someone is walking down a long hallway in a hospital. The client is going to make any decision that has to do with a Wi-Fi connection. Now, I realize there is an 802.11 standard that could adjust that a little bit. 802.11v would allow for a little bit more access point control over connections. But 802.11v, for controlling access point connections at least, is not currently supported in modern client devices. Like, iPhones support 802.11v, but they don't allow 802.11v to have the access point choose the client's connections. You know, the iPhone still makes the decision on which AP it'll connect to, when it's going to roam, etc. And so because of the fact that the client makes those decisions, knowing the signal strength at the client, meaning knowing the signal strength from the AP to the client, is often kind of more important. It's often more important to know the signal strength that the client is receiving from the AP rather than the signal strength that the AP is receiving from the client. And so that's one reason why these Wi-Fi scanners are so valuable. In my estimation, is they're the one way that you can see real signal strength. I can take a laptop, I can take a smartphone, whatever type of Wi-Fi client device I have, to a given location. I can run a Wi-Fi scanner on that client device, and I can get an idea. Here's how strong the signal is from my current AP. Here's how strong the signal strength is from other APs that are nearby. I don't have the ability to do that in any other tool. I can get signal strength in the other direction, from the client to the AP. I can get that in a ton of these tools. I can get that in Voyance. I can get that on Mist. I can get that on Insight and DNA. I can get that on Prime Infrastructure. I can get that on Airwave or Aruba Central. I can get that in all these different locations, but that's not the most important signal strength. The more important signal strength is that signal strength coming from the AP to the client. And then, the other part of why I like the Wi-Fi scanner so much, the real look at CCI, it kind of goes hand in hand with the first one. Since the only way I can see real signal strength is by looking at a Wi-Fi scanner. That means the only way I'm going to see real CCI is by looking at a Wi-Fi scanner. Because what CCI is, what co-channel interference is, CCI is just more than one AP on the same channel. That's all that means. Or on the same frequency, if you want to look at it that way. That's what we mean when we say CCI is just my, let's say smartphone that's sitting on my desk in a big open office space. If my smartphone is hearing more than one access point on its channel, let's say my smartphone's on channel 48. If my smartphone hears a second or a third or a fourth access point on channel 48, then that's CCI, or at least it's the potential for CCI. And I need to be able to get the real downlink signal strength. I need to be able to get the real signal strength coming from the AP to the client to be able to know that. If I'm sort of diagramming out here, let's say this is my little floor plan. And if I have my little smartphone sitting here on my desk, and there's an access point that's on channel number 48, let's say I'm using a 40 megahertz wide channel. So that would be channel 48 and channel 44 as well. If that's the connection that my access point has, if there's any other access point in this office space that is able to kind of reach all the way to this client. Maybe there's some access points where they're not necessarily going to reach all the way to the client, but if there's any access point that can reach there that's on channel 44 or channel 48, again, assuming I'm using a 40 megahertz wide channel, if there's any access point on channel 44 or 48, then there's the potential for CCI. There's the potential that there could be a client over here that's transmitting or a client that's receiving. Those radio waves may reach my smartphone or may reach my access point and may cause some type of issue. And I should point out, this was pointed out to me a while back, maybe a year or so ago, by a very wise Wi-Fi individual. I'd say his name is relatively well known in Wi-Fi circles. Name is Peter McKenzie. About maybe a year and a half ago or something like that, Peter kind of was mentioning, he was saying, like, look, at a lot of the places where he works on Wi-Fi, because he tends to do a lot of work in the retail space, and which also means in warehouses. And so at these some of these large retail locations and in some of these warehouses, he has to put up with a lot of CCI in order to get a high enough signal strength for the connection. Like if he were to design this big open warehouse or this big open retail space, like a big box retailer, type thing. If he were to try to design the Wi-Fi for that and try to make it so that he never had this scenario, so there was no other access point on channel 44 or 48 that, was sort of reaching his client connection. If he were to do that, he would have to make his design with such a low signal strength that it, the network probably wouldn't work very well. So I don't want to say that CCI is the be-all, end-all, but in a lot of environments, CCI can kind of cause problems. So the bottom line is, again, that the Wi-Fi scanner is our one way to get this stuff for real. If I want to see the real RSSI that my client device is getting, or if I want to see the real CCI that is in a given area, then I need to use a Wi-Fi scanner, or at least I need to use a Wi-Fi scanner for signal strength and for CCI coming from the AP to the client. That's the one way that I'm going to be able to gather that information. One other little note I'll mention here, to get a real CCI indication, you must have your beacon frames at 6 megabit per second. Whoops, beacon, C-O-N, B-E-A-C-O-N. Beacon frames at 6 megabits per second. It's a whole complicated thing. The term that I like to use for it is ghost frames. So if you want to avoid the ghost frame problem, if you want to be a ghost frame buster, to make an incredibly corny joke, then you have to have the beacon rate set up in your environment at 6 megabits per second. That's the only way that you're going to be able to get an accurate indication of CCI. That's just the way the technology works. And I'll kind of leave that for a separate Twitch stream as far as the details on why that is. Obviously, I put up my Twitter handle and such if you are interested, or you have the chat area here. If you are interested about the details of that, let me know, and I can always do a separate Twitch stream on that. So, that's the bigger reason why I'm such a lover of these Wi-Fi scanners. I can get RSSI from a real-world device. And the key thing is different devices see differently. So, if I have a troubleshooting laptop, let's say my boss, let's say my job gets me a nice new MacBook Pro, 13-inch MacBook Pro, latest and greatest model. If I run my Wi-Fi scanner on that MacBook Pro, I'm able to see the RSSI information, get some CCI information for MacBook Pros. If other people in my environment are using Dell laptops or are using their smartphones or are using MacBook Airs, then I might see things a little bit differently. Now, it may be close enough. What you see from a MacBook Pro may be close enough to what you see with a MacBook Air that it may still do the job. The Wi-Fi scanner running on a MacBook Pro may still be appropriate for troubleshooting or for validating or for surveying for MacBook Airs, but you do want to be aware of that there may be slight differences. The other thing is, and this is one of the things that applies to Wi-Fi Explorer, some Wi-Fi scanners will give you relevant beacon information, and so it'll give you an idea of, for example, well, what channel am I on? What is the channel width I'm using? What data rates are supported? Sometimes you may be concerned about security as well. And so those are all reasons why I'm a big fan of these Wi-Fi scanners. I want to take you into looking at that Wi-Fi scanner now. I've spent enough time talking about it, and I'll get back to a couple other things that I want to discuss. I'll talk about sort of the methodology that I use in a little bit, but let's take a look at that Wi-Fi scanner. So this is a look at Wi-Fi Explorer Pro. It's a scanner that is only for Mac OS. Let me make this a little bit bigger here so that we can see everything relatively clearly. It's a scanner for Mac OS. Let me shrink that just to... There we go. Now we can see the whole thing. So Wi-Fi Explorer Pro, it's a Wi-Fi scanner for Mac OS. There is a low-cost version. I believe it's 15 or 20 US dollars. There's also a higher cost version that's the version that I'm using. There are several things about the higher cost version that I like, but I would say probably the biggest one for me, the sort of most essential one for me, is these annotations. That's kind of the big thing for me. When I was doing work at USC, it's such a large Wi-Fi environment. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000 access points across all, the USC campuses and the buildings that USC owns or has leases on. That it's just too hard to keep track of things by MAC address, by BSSID. And so being able to put these annotations in and put in the name of the access point, you can also put other notes if you want to. That was extremely helpful to me. If you are a Wi-Fi Explorer user, you can import the names on a spreadsheet. You can put together a spreadsheet to import a bunch of names if you want to. The format for the spreadsheet is BSSID followed by annotation. That's that's kind of the idea there. And I don't know if I have one of these that I can show you here real quick. I thought I had one. Maybe I don't. There we go. Yeah, this is close enough. Yeah, so give me just a moment to add this to the old Twitch screen here. But yeah, this is going to be a very, very basic look at it, but this is what it needs to look like. Okay, now you should be able to see it. So very, very basic. Just BSSID in one column, your alias that you want in another column, and once you have that, then you can import that into Wi-Fi Explorer. And to import it into Wi-Fi Explorer, let me just move this down a little bit so I can see. Whoops. Move this down is what I meant. So yeah, when you're running Wi-Fi Explorer, whoops, wrong one. There we go. Or it's not going to let me get to that menu, at least when I'm sharing it with you all. Sorry about that. But if you go to, there's a top menu bar when you're running Wi-Fi Explorer. Here, maybe I can do it this way. I'll drag it over there. Okay, let's do that. Give me just a moment here. Okay. So yeah, you can see that top menu bar there, and it allows you to either export what you already have to a CSV file, or you can import from a CSV file. And again, you just got to make sure that the CSV file is formatted with BSSID in one column and whatever alias you want, whatever annotation you want in the second column. So yeah, let me get back to what I was doing here now. Whoops, there we go. There we go. So yeah, so you can kind of put in these annotations. And again, kind of the big thing I like about Wi-Fi Explorer is this signal strength that I'm seeing here. This is the real signal strength that my client device is receiving from the access point. The Wi-Fi scanner is sort of the only way to get that. Some operating systems will allow you to view the that information. Let me fix something here real quick. Or actually, it looks like I can't. Some operating systems will allow you to see your signal strength without a Wi-Fi scanner. In fact, I would say most operating systems. I shouldn't say most. I would say some operating systems. Basically, Apple. Basically Mac OS and iOS, Apple iOS will allow you to see it. But yeah, so I can see my signal strength if I hold down the Alt key, or the Option key, as it's also called. There we go. So there's my kind of... Actually, I got to put that in front of Wi-Fi Explorer here. So yeah, there's my list of networks. You can see the network that I'm connected to. If I hold down the Alt key or the Option key on my keyboard, notice I get all this extra information. And some of the information I get here is my RSSI, is my signal strength. And so yeah, that's showing me my real signal strength, showing me my sort of real information there. You know, the only other way I'm going to get that is if I use Wi-Fi scanner, because the whole key is that the Wi-Fi scanner is tied to the Wi-Fi adapter that you're using. That's the whole thing that makes these Wi-Fi scanners so valuable, is you can tie the Wi-Fi scanner is naturally tied to the real client adapter. So this negative 40 decibels, negative 40 dBm that I'm seeing here, that's coming directly from my real Wi-Fi adapter. That's not like a third-party adapter. That's not a separate adapter. If I'm placing my laptop or placing my smartphone or whatever the tool is at a location where I can kind of look at this, info, that's what it's going to give me the real signal strength from that location. That's kind of the nice thing about that. For iPhones, you do have the option to see that as well. You know what? I didn't bring my iPhone with me to my desk right now, so I don't have the ability to put it on the screen. But basically, if you go to the Wi-Fi settings and you have the if you have diagnostic mode enabled, then you can see your Wi-Fi signal strength. I'll have to save that for another Twitch stream, but on another Twitch stream, I'll go through that Wi-Fi diagnostic mode. In fact, I'll write myself a little note here. We're going to do the Granados tools. And in a future stream, we'll do something about ghost frames in a future stream. And I'll also do the diagnostics for Apple iOS and kind of how that can be done in another future Twitch stream. So yeah, so I'm able to see my real signal strength here. And if I kind of organize things by channel, you know, that's what I'm doing here, is organizing things by channel, then I can get a pretty good idea of whether I have any kind of co-channel interference. You know, I see I'm on channel number 149. Channel 149 has an 80 megahertz width. You know, pop quiz for anyone who's streaming along with me. You can put your answer in the chat area. Does anyone know which other channels are going to potentially be interfered with and have the potential to interfere with me besides channel 149? You know, the standard Wi-Fi channel width is 20 megahertz. So anytime I'm using a channel wider than 20 megahertz, that means that I have the potential to interfere with additional channels. That means other channels can interfere with me. Does anyone know off the top of their heads which other channels interfere with channel number 149 or can be interfered with by channel 149? I'll give you all a minute or two. I know there's some delay on the Twitch screen, so on the Twitch stream, so at the time I'm saying it, you all are probably hearing it a couple of seconds later. But if you do know which channels are being used, feel free to put those in the chat area. And I'll give you all maybe another 10 seconds or so. But yeah, the other channels that are used are channels, just typing them in so that I can reveal them all at once. It would be channels let's see here. just a moment. Sorry, I am on the wrong screen there. There we go. Very close, Amit. It's the channels are, you got two of them, 153, 157. The other one is 161. So 153, 150, 157, 161. Those ones are the ones that can interfere with or be interfered by channel 149, 80 megahertz channel width. So that's our answer there. Nice little opportunity for a pop quiz here. But yeah, so let me bring back Wi-Fi Explorer. So I can see here as I kind of order these access points by channel. There's this access point up here, Casitas 5G. Whatever that is, that one has the potential to cause CCI. Not a terribly strong signal strength. If you look over in the signal strength, negative 88 decibels is on the low side. Another topic, I guess, for that I can discuss in the future would kind of be the receive thresholds. And what I mean by that is there may be some devices, be it client devices or access points, where when they hear a signal at negative 88 decibels, at negative 88 dBm, they'll just ignore that signal, and thus it won't cause as severe of a CCI problem. It could still cause a regular interference problem, a interference but not CCI problem. But in terms of causing a CCI problem, this negative 88 decibels may be too low to really cause a problem. It's possible that my computer or my smartphone might just ignore something that comes in at such a low signal strength like negative 88 dBm. Let's see here if there's any others. Looks like this Disco Sam is another one. Channel number 149 at negative 64 dBm. This one definitely could cause a CCI problem. And in fact, it makes me wonder why my beloved crappy Google Wi-Fi access point isn't moving off of channel 149. The answer is probably in the name for that access point. I'm a little bit of a hater on the Google access point, the Google Wi-Fi product based on my experience with my access point. I use an older Google product. I do not use the mesh product. I just use a single access point called the Google On Hub. I'll put that in the chat area here. ONHUB. That's what I use, and it does cover my whole home. I don't live in a terribly large home. I kind of live in the middle of the city, so I don't have like a huge space to cover, but it does have relatively broad coverage, but I don't love the fact that it is currently using a channel that's occupied by someone else who has such a strong signal strength, who has this negative 62. Here's, it looks like another one. There's a hidden network. Oh, you know what? This Roku, this may not be terribly active. That just may be a Roku device that is kind of looking for a connection and that is not set up. So that may not be active enough. Roku devices can act as access points if they lose their connectivity to their access point. A Roku device is a video streaming device that's normally a client, and so it can sometimes kind of lose that connection and then start acting as an access point. So this one's probably not a major interference problem. And then that's it. Nothing else. But look at this. Channel number, 44 is occupied 80 megahertz. So to kind of add on to what I was talking about before, channel 44 means also channels 36, 40, and 48. And, that's another good thing I can do a Twitch stream on in the future is the channel bondings. Giving myself a few notes here. So those channels are occupied. Obviously, channel 149, this is an 80 megahertz wide. So channel 149, 153, 157, 161, those are all occupied. I mean, those are occupied by me, by this attic access point here. And I see channel number 100 over a 40 megahertz. Again, I won't force you into a pop quiz there, but channel 100, when it's over 40 megahertz, that would also interfere with channel 104. So channels 36 and 153 I talked about earlier. 153 is using the same channels as my access point. It's using 149, 153, 157, 161. So channels 36, 40, 44, 48 are being used. Channels 100 and 104 are being used. Channels 149, 153, 157, 161 are all being used. But there's still plenty of other channels that modern Wi-Fi devices support that that my access point could be using. Maybe what has happened with my access point is maybe my access point has tried some of those other channels, and maybe I have some client devices that don't support all of those other channels. That was me was talking about adjacent channel interference. Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things that we did see at USC with some of the barcode scanners for the basketball arena. The barcode scanners for the basketball arena, we found would do only 5 gigahertz channels, 36, 40, 44, 48, 149, 153, 157, and 161. No other channels were supported. And so what I was going to say is that, my access point here probably should have chosen something like channel 132. Channel 132 would also be bonded with 136, 140, and 144. But maybe what's going on there is, I suppose it's always possible the access point doesn't support it. If the access point doesn't support it, I really should be getting a new access point. But maybe I have some type of device in my home that's similar to those barcode scanners that we have at the arena, where the barcode scanners just didn't see the access point on those channels, on channels 132, 136, 140, or 144. You may also, if you're wondering about other channels that I didn't mention there, I didn't mention channels 108 or 112 because those are bonded with channels 100 and 104 when 80 megahertz width is used. And it is nice to be able to use the 80 megahertz width at home because you get higher speeds. The wider the channel, the higher the speeds. And I didn't mention channels 116, 120, 124, or 128 because those channels are all bonded together when you use when you're using the 80 megahertz width, and channels 120, 124, and 128 may get hit by Doppler radar. Here in the United States, Doppler radar is primarily used for by meteorologists, to kind of predict the weather. In fact, hopefully here in Los Angeles, they used it for predicting rain. Well, we're going to have rain all day. That was one of the things I had to get used to when I moved to Los Angeles to go to college at USC back in the day, is rain in Wisconsin and rain in California are very different. In Wisconsin, we get these thunderstorms and such, but they tend to clear out relatively quickly. Maybe not as quickly as like in Dallas, Texas or something, but it's usually a pretty quick in and out. In Los Angeles, we don't typically get like a thunderstorm, so the rain's typically not as hard, but it is just constant. It lasts for hours or potentially more than a day. It just keeps on raining and raining and raining and raining. So it ends up causing a fair amount of flooding problems just because the grass and the sewage systems don't have time to recover between thunderstorms or anything like that. But yeah, so the point is, hopefully our Doppler radar saw that. And the key with channels 120, 124, and 128 is if your access points or if your clients detect a Doppler radar hit, then your AP has to change channels. That can cause some disruption in your Wi-Fi environment. So usually I avoid channels 120, 124, and 128. And since I want to use 80 megahertz in my home, that means I also avoid channel 116. So those are kind of the other channel options that you have there. So yeah, that's basically what's so nice about these Wi-Fi scanners. I'm able to find my access point. I'm able to see which channel my access point is on. I'm able to see the channel width of my access point. I'm able to see how strong the signal is. Then I'm also able to get an idea of co-channel interference. In my case, there were several access points that were using 149 or 153 or 157 or 161. We're using a channel that's the same as mine or that has the potential to interfere with mine. And if I were in an enterprise environment, this would give me the ability to make some adjustments. Maybe I would see that for whatever reason, my automatic channel selection protocol isn't working as well as I thought. And so maybe I would kind of do some channel groupings instead of doing just allowing every channel to be available to every access point. Let me show you what I'm talking about here with channel groupings. This is something that I'm going to show you later in the stream when I talk about kind of how I use these Wi-Fi scanners in real life, kind of what methodology I use. But this is an example of an office where I did some consulting. The little green dots, which you may be familiar with if you're, and this is straight from Ekahau, at least the green dots were. The green dots were the locations prior to me working on the project, and the blue dots were my recommendations for either new access points or access point moves. Hopefully it's relatively clear what I'm talking about there. Let me make sure I bring up the right picture here. There we go. But yeah, so whenever you see an arrow like this, that's an indicator that it's a move. If there's no arrow, then there's no move. So for this environment, if I was having problems, if I was seeing kind of what I'm seeing here in Wi-Fi Explorer, and it's like, gosh, there's some open channels, 132, 136, 132, 140 that are available, and my controllers or my access points aren't choosing those channels. What you can do is kind of group the channels together. You may have a setup here where, you may use channels 36. Actually, I guess I should just put in text here and make the text a little bit bigger. Put the text in red so you can see it a little bit more clearly. But yeah, so I might use channels, let's say 36 to 48 with one of the access points. I may have another access point up here that I say only allow to use channels 52 through 64. That was another set of channels that I kind of forgot about there when I was talking about things that could be used in my apartment. And so you might have several different channel ranges for several different access points. Maybe here I use 100 to 112, whatever it is. And so the idea there is that you won't have a situation where two of your access points, let's say, let's say this access point down here and an access point up here. You won't have a situation where two of those access points end up choosing the same channel. You end up, making sure that they kind of stay off of channels so that you avoid interference there. The downside there, of course, is management of having to kind of keep everything configured appropriately, having to keep track of which access point is using which channel configuration. So I'm not saying that you always that you always want to do it that way. But yeah, so that's something that you can kind of use the Wi-Fi scanner for. You go out to a location, you find that client devices in a certain area, client devices that are located here in this little area, maybe at one of these desks, is getting its best connection from one access point, and then it's still getting connections from other access points. That type of thing can happen. I really got to stop using, there we go. Stop using preview for my drawing here and go to, I have a different application for drawing. I just brought up the wrong one is what happened. So I might have several access points that are hitting this location, and I need to make sure that those access points are staying on different channels, and using a Wi-Fi scanner is a great way to confirm that. That way I can really confirm, rather than just kind of looking at my floor plans, I can really confirm which access points are hitting this device and which access points are potentially causing CCI. I actually just got a little text message indicating that, something I got to take care of, that I have to take care of something. I was planning to cover a couple of other topics today. And so what I'll do is I'll cover these things next week, and I'll talk about kind of the methodology of how I use the Wi-Fi scanners and where they fit in for a couple different things. I was going to talk about surveying methodology. So what I mean there is, if you have a building that hasn't been deployed with access points, or if you're going into a building or a location where you already have a deployment, but you're planning to try to maybe upgrade things, or you're maybe trying to put in a newer model of access point, kind of what type of methodology I might use, and then where would the Wi-Fi scanner fit in there? Where would a tool like Wi-Fi Explorer fit in with this surveying methodology? Next week, I will also talk a little bit about what I like to call kind of prevention. So prevention is a scenario where you're already deployed, so you already have client devices on the network, and you're doing some type of survey that is not reactive. So this is not in response to a problem. This is something, I messed up a little bit here on the Twitch stream. Apologies for that. I forgot to make sure that this is 100% up there. So yeah, let me go back there. So next week, what I'll talk about is surveying methodology and sort of where Wi-Fi scanners can be used during a survey. I use Wi-Fi scanners anytime I'm doing a survey. When I say surveying, this would be sort of for a new deployment, or this might be part of kind of a scheduled upgrade. You have a building where there's been chronic issues with the Wi-Fi and you're going to do a full-fledged upgrade, or you have a build, you're just doing kind of a general upgrade. Maybe you're going from Wi-Fi 4 to Wi-Fi 5 or Wi-Fi 4 to Wi-Fi 6, a new technology being put in. So that's one place where you use where you might want to use a scanner. Another place where I like to use a scanner is what I call prevention. This is a scenario where you are already deployed and you just want to be a little bit proactive. So what I mean by that is you're not reacting to an issue. This is not troubleshooting. This isn't where someone has said, oh, nobody in this room has good Wi-Fi, or my client device doesn't have good Wi-Fi. You're going in as a preventative thing. So this might be, again, you have an event here, or you're seeing low numbers of client devices connecting, so you're worried that the Wi-Fi isn't very good, or you're seeing lower amounts of data. Just, anything anything that kind of raises a red flag to you saying, hey, maybe I should investigate this area, the Wi-Fi scanner is definitely a tool that I use when doing these types of, or have done in the past when doing these types of preventative activities. And then, of course, the signature use of the Wi-Fi analyzer would definitely be troubleshooting. So this is the reactive part. This is the someone has a problem, and so now I'm going to use the Wi-Fi scanner, among other tools, to go in and try to get this problem solved. Or maybe I won't have to use other tools. Maybe I'll be able to solve the problem without using, kind of any kind of Wi-Fi specific tools. But that's the idea with the troubleshooting is being more reactive. So again, I just got the message that I got to wrap things up quickly here. So I wanted to go into that this week. I'll save this for next week. So next week, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. in Helsinki. I'm going to go through and talk more about Wi-Fi scanners, but talk about kind of where they fit in a surveying methodology, a preventative methodology, or a troubleshooting methodology. I do have to get going though. I appreciate you all watching along, whether it's live. I finally figured out how to post these things on YouTube, so some of you may not be watching live. But yeah, appreciate you checking it out, and I will see you back 10 a.m. Pacific time next week. I believe that's, what is that, December 4th? I really should have checked the dates there to make sure that I have the right date. I think it's December 3rd, actually. So next Wednesday, December 3rd, we'll go through methodologies for surveying, preventative stuff, and troubleshooting. And I'll talk about how Wi-Fi scanners, especially Wi-Fi Explorer, which is kind of my favorite scanner, are used there. Have a good one. For those of you in the United States, have a happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving, and I'll catch you all later.